The creative industries is a really interesting topic for how to get jobs in that sector. It's one of my favourites. One of the things I often ask students when they ask me this kind of question is, which creative sector are you particularly interested in? So for example, are you interested in being a fashion designer? And if you are, why do you consider that to be a creative job but not a screen printer working in a merchandising company? For students who want to be copywriters and content writers, why do you consider working for some brands to be in the creative sector but not others? So one of the things that I often say is, if there is a particular job you really want to do or a particular sector you really want to work in, see if you can find a less glamorous version of that first. Think small to start with, build up your portfolio, then go for the big guns. The other thing definitely in the creative sectors is to make sure you've got an excellent portfolio, that you're consistently keeping it up to date and that you're networking in the right places. There are brilliant opportunities out there, especially with things like BAFTA and Screen Skills to look into. Work experience is so important when undergoing your degree. I would say the best thing to think about, if you think about the degree you're studying and when you're going to graduate, how many other hundreds of graduates are going to graduate in the same year with a similar degree to you? It doesn't mean your degree isn't brilliant, and it doesn't mean that you're not the very best candidate on the face of the planet for a different role, but if you can prove that in a variety of different ways, you will make your life a lot easier when it comes to interview. Also, what I often find is that alumni call us after a few years and they say, I thought I really wanted to do this, but I hate it. How can I change into a new career? And I often feel if they'd had different or varied work experience opportunities, they might not have ended up in that position. I personally do not believe that jobs in the creative industry are any more difficult to get than careers in any other industry. The reason that I don't believe that is because I just like to name drop, so I'm going to put this in there. Recently I was at an event at BAFTA in London, which was about creative jobs in the industry, and it's one of the fastest growing industries in the UK at the moment, in particular in games and games design. It's exploding, the jobs are there. And they don't just want people who can code, they don't just want people who understand lots of obscure computer programs I will never understand. They want illustrators to do character design, they want marketers, they want financial analysts to check that the production is running to cost. And often the most important thing that any graduate can do is look at what exists and where they could fit into that. And sometimes it's about taking risks. Sometimes I think creative students have to be cheekier than other students and graduates. They have to send out more emails, they have to stalk people on Twitter a bit more, they have to be willing to be on secret Facebook groups to find out when the next runner position is, but the jobs are there. Any sector you can think of, you will be able to find a website that is catered to that organisation or to that sector. For creative students specifically, I have some of particular favourites. Obviously one of them is Arts Jobs, which is a huge website for jobs in the arts and creative sectors in general. BAFTA, Screen Skills, lots of websites people are aware of, as well as one I really like called The Dots, as in you join the dots. They're very, very creative and clever. That often advertises some quite high-end roles like senior designers and fashion buyers, but what it does is it really gives you an indication of what companies are out there that you can then explore separately to find out whether there are any slightly more entry-level jobs available. If I was being mean, I would say that the best advice to give to students applying for postgraduate jobs is if you're only thinking about it after you've graduated, you're thinking about it a bit late. But if I'm being charitable, there is loads of stuff you can still do if you are even only just thinking about jobs after graduation. The first thing you need to do is have a really honest conversation with yourself about what your key skills and strengths are. If you're going to tell me that you've got excellent research skills, well, lots of students have those. Can you prove it in a way that other people won't be able to? When you know what skills you've got, you also want to identify what do I enjoy using, because you don't want to go for a job that you can do it standing on your head but you'll be bored every single day of your life. Once you've got that, you want to think about other things that matter as well. So for example, where do you want to be based in the world? I see students that want to be in Japan and Canada, but then they don't know that there are certain jobs that exist here that don't exist in those countries. Or alternatively, how hard is it going to be for you to get that dream job? Is it going to mean that you might have to work 60 hours a week for 2 years, but at the end of that 2 years, you'll be able to buy a house in a really nice area, and then try doing something else. Once you've established what's important to you, start applying. That is the absolute best tip. Even if you're applying for jobs you don't think you could get, go for it anyway because you might surprise yourself. It often depends on the sector. If we're thinking about creative in particular, You definitely want to try to keep everything on one page if possible. You want to make sure that it's eye-catching. As a recruiter in a former life, I will say the key thing is to make it easy to read. You want the top information to be as easy to see as possible, whether or not you do that by making it in a bold font or by putting it somewhere different on the page, but you really want to make it so that it can be scan read as easily as possible. And everything you say needs to be backed up by evidence somewhere in your CV too.